Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. This is Eric O'Brien. Today I wanted to talk about Stonehenge. Everybody's often fascinated by ancient monuments like Stonehenge. And about 20 years ago, I had a very vivid dream, as if I was there, of how Stonehenge was erected, the construction methods used. I dreamed of how it could have been done. So, this is my theory. I wrote my theory down in a chapter of The Drums of Doom, part 2 of my book, The Dwarad Staff Saga. There's a chapter at the beginning, a short chapter called The Henge of Stone. Anybody that reads it will know right away that I'm talking about Stonehenge itself. Okay, shameless self-promotion aside, most scholars believe that Stonehenge was created by hundreds of workers, humans, Neolithic people, doing the work by hand with levers, ropes, stone tools, and so on. And there's other theories about how the ring of Stonehenge was erected, going as far as to say that they had alien help in doing so. I don't think any of that was necessary. But for some reason, all the scholars seem to dismiss the fact that Great Britain at the time had cattle. And if you have cattle, you have oxen. And if anybody's seen an ox pull, you know the tremendous strength of these animals. And I think that they were a huge part of the construction of Stonehenge. Okay. So anyway, we know that Stonehenge was created by sarsen stone, which is a silicized sandstone. It's a very hard stone, but workable. And it's long-lasting and enduring, be the perfect stone to choose. They know from core samples that the stones of Stonehenge match the Westwoods stones from a quarry in Westwoods in Wiltshire, Marlborough Downs. The stones themselves were up to 25 to even 30 tons, 23 feet long in all, 6 to 7 feet wide. Okay. The Henge of Stone was built between 3000 and 2000 BC, what they call the early Bronze Age. So although they think that for the beginning of Stonehenge they didn't have bronze, that they used stone tools made of flint to carve the stone. And from the quarry of Westwoods, Wiltshire, to Stonehenge is about 15 to 20 miles, depending on the route that they took. The circle of stones that they attempted to build, and no one's sure if they actually completed the entire circle, but I think they must have, was 30 standing stones and 30 lintel stones, all level to within a couple centimeters of each other. So quite an amazing feat. We know that Britain was forested at the time, but during the period 4300 to 3250, there were deforested areas that had been, where the trees had been taken down for farming purposes. So they had trees, they had logs. Still were woods and forests in Great Britain. We know from the Grand Passage tomb at Newgrange, Ireland, that they could create large mounds of earth and circular stone monuments. And Newgrange in Ireland was 76 meters wide and 12 meters tall. A huge undertaking, massive amount of earth was moved to build it. Okay. We know that they had a rope. Cordage and rope has been in Europe for 28,000 years or more. All right. They had rope made from plant fibers, leather, animal hair, and hemp rope. And the tensile strength is probably approximately 800 pounds for a 3-strand or a strong rope that they could have made and used for shipping purposes, sailing, and other uses. They had stone axes and tools made from flint. Certainly they could have made any tools out of wood. Okay. And the oxen, that's the key. Cattle was brought from Europe to England and Ireland about 6,000 years ago. And if anyone doesn't know, an ox is a castrated bull, but cows could also be used as oxen. And when they're 4 years old or older, that's when they're ready to be used for pulling and hauling weights and loads. The world record ox pull from a single team of oxen. 2 ox pulled 12,350 pounds of weight on a sled for 6 feet. So that's 6 tons for a short distance. And they can pull their own body weight, 2 to 3 tons at a walking pace indefinitely. Tremendously strong animals. And we know from the lumber and the forestry industry before the use of automobiles that sometimes 20 or more ox teams could be connected by yokes to pull incredibly heavy loads. And there's legends of them pulling 35, enormous logs, trees, felled in the lumber industry as one load in 20 or more teams of oxen chained together. So 20 teams should be able to conservatively pull 40 tons of load. Easily able to pull a sarsen stone of 25 tons. And they can do it over rolling terrain. So, very powerful animals. Okay. Most scholars will tell you that teams of, they wasn't, in modern times, a team of 100 workers pushed and pulled the stone slab along in 18 miles from Marlborough Downs to Stonehenge. So they proved that just manpower can do the job. But why would you do that? If you're a farming community where most of the people in the community would have to work in order to survive a harsh winter, you're not going to use that kind of manpower. You're not going to get it. Why not use oxen? Okay, the sandstone of the sarsen stone, silicified sandstone, dolerite, other types of stone were also used in the construction of Stonehenge and other parts of the monument. And we know in Egypt, 3500 BC, they were making rope out of water reed fibers or leather. And the Chinese developed hemp rope in 2800 BC. So the technology for making rope was well in place at the time of Stonehenge. That's really the key to the whole thing. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Now, my dream was mostly about how the standing stones were put in place and the capstones were able to be leveled to such a precise degree. Now, in the actual Stonehenge, the capstone is called the lintel stone. Okay, and each one, unlike my model, was mortised and tenon, were connected by mortise and tenon joints and tongue and groove to one another and to the standing stones so that they wouldn't be able to move. And they were perfectly put in place to within a couple of centimeters. So how could they do that? Okay. Anyway, in terms of moving the stones, I believe that up to 20 or more teams of oxen were used, connected by yokes and rope, however many strands of rope were needed to pull that kind of weight. And they were pulled over rolling logs all over the terrain. And you used your manpower in this process to move the logs from the back of the chain to the front of the chain. And we can thank the Lady Vera and the Lady Emily for their assistance in this process. So, the sarsen stones dragged over the terrain, okay, for 15 to 20 miles. It should be doable. Okay. Now, when they come to the site of Stonehenge, it's hard to see my box from this camera angle, but I believe they would have built a mound of earth large enough to accommodate the entire stone ring and then some to the height that they wanted. So the mound of earth, Stonehenge is 10 to 13 feet high. I believe the mound would have been at least 10 feet high, probably a little bit high, right around where we want the top of the sarsen stones to come. And we dig through the mound of earth that we created, and then beneath the existing substrate of earth to accommodate the full length of the stone with a little bit left over on top. Now, the mound of earth was created to that height. a ramp sloped gently enough and wide enough for the ox teams to pull the stone up onto the hill without being scared or spooked. And that ramp was probably lined with flattened logs, put into the soil strongly and smoothly, so when the stone got there it wouldn't just plow into the soil and stop the process, but it would ride up the ramp until it was standing on the flat plane, the flat surface of the hilltop. Then the holes would be dug one by one according to the alignment that we want the Stonehenge to be, the alignment to the heavens that we want it. And we know that one opening of Stonehenge pointed towards the sunset of the winter solstice, and on the south end another opening pointing towards the sunrise of the summer solstice. And there was other alignments too, I'm sure, that they wanted to come up with. But I'm not really concerned with the placement, but the how. That's what I'm trying to give you, the how. Now, anybody that's lifted a stone knows that the first few feet, or lifted a heavy log, I should say, that the first part of the lift is the hardest. You lift the majority of the way here, and then as the log is lifted, physics begins to help until the last part is the easiest. So I believe once they dug the hole where they wanted that stone to go, and they would already know the precise size of the stone that they brought from the quarry, they had plenty of time to figure out how large to make the hole. I believe that they would create a 45-degree ramp down to the bottom of the hole, and they would probably line that with logs as well. The stone is dragged up to the level position by the oxen and the humans. The ropes changed, the oxen led to the beyond the hole to safety, and then they would be used to pull the stone again into the hole. Now at this point, physics is on their side again because of the ramp that we built to the hole. The ropes changed, the oxen would pull each stone into a standing position. Okay? Now once the stone was level and plumb, as best that they could do, the hole would be backfilled. Alright? And now, unlike my drawing, the dirt would be up to the top, almost just with a little left over of the sarsen stone. Then they would do it again. Go back to the quarry, get the second stone, using the same setup, using the same oxen, same ropes, same yokes. And they would drag the next stone into place. And it would slide down the hole, and they would pull it to its position. And backfill it. Okay? So now we have, and they would do this 30 times. And then there was another horseshoe ring of stones. They could put those at the same time or a different time. You just have to keep moving the earth. Okay? Now once all these stones are in place, the earth is here. They would level the surface of the entire tabletop to a high degree. And you could make a primitive level by carving a groove in a log, putting water in it, and watching the water slide back and forth on that log. You could come to a high degree of level just using a primitive device like that. Okay, so it's leveled. Now the second part is the lintel stones, the capstone. Each capstone was joined to the other. Now if the soil is the same height as the top of the, so imagine that the top of the sarsen stone is now here. You have a small amount of the stone sticking out. They could easily chisel it away. You don't have to be on staging. You're just right on top of that soil. You would level all the sarsen stones the same across the entire plane in that 30-meter wide circle of stones. Leveling all these caps to one another into the surrounding field. Then each lintel stone could be worked one by one, carved, jointed, and placed on top of each standing stone. And once you had all this done, all the lintels carved and placed on the level surface of those standing stones, you would excavate the earth. Once you had your monument built, you remove the soil down to the existing plane. And then, like magic, you would have Stonehenge. Because we know that these lintel stones are within 2 centimeters of level throughout the entire surface. How could you do that standing on staging on one and just trying to level one to the other? You'd never get that kind of accuracy unless you did it with a mound of earth built up to the top of the sarsen stone and leveled so that the lintel stones could be placed perfectly and precisely on top of each one. And I believe that they used the tools that they had at hand, and I believe they definitely used oxen and rope and rolling logs to move it from the quarry, and I'm sure plenty of manpower too. But with the use of oxen, the manpower would be greatly reduced. Okay. Anyway, that is my theory as to how Stonehenge was built. I have other ideas too, but I don't want to bore you with the details. I believe the Neolithic builders were just as intelligent as we are, maybe smarter in some ways. They had to live the life in the field every day of their lives. They knew how to get things done. Thank you and have a happy new year.